Hello, this is Wharfdale Talking News with your audio-described TV programmes for the period Saturday 24th to Friday 30th of January 2026, compiled by Val and read by Rebecca. Starting with Saturday the 24th of January. Discover the creatures of the Cornish Gardens in Helligan, Secrets of the Lost Garden on BBC Two at 9:30 a.m. There are 4 episodes of The Simpsons starting at 10:45 a.m. on Channel 4. Sabre brings destruction to the arena as a new event is revealed in Gladiators at 5:45 on BBC One. Graham Norton presents a special couples edition of Wheel of Fortune at 6 p.m, followed by The Masked Singer at 7 and The 1% Club at 8:30, all on ITV1. The early evening film on Channel 4 at 7 p.m. is the sci-fi adventure Independence Day, starring Will Smith. There's a rude awakening for Flynn when the CQC turn up. The hospital drama Casualty is at 8:35 p.m. on BBC One. Although not audio described, Dolly Parton fans can enjoy a night of programmes on BBC Two dedicated to the Queen of Country, to celebrate her 80th birthday, starting at 8:35 with Dolly Parton at the BBC. Dan's life begins to move forward as he finds real happiness with Natasha and her son until Frank reveals the whereabouts of his father. The drama Waiting for the Out continues on BBC One at 9:25 p.m. The Radio Times film of the day on Channel 4 at 9:45 is the wartime drama The Zone of Interest. In 1943, Nazi officer Rudolf Höss receives a promotion and moves his wife and children into a house directly next to his new workplace, Auschwitz concentration camp. On to Sunday the 25th of January. Sunday with Laura Kuenssberg, featuring interviews with politicians and key public figures, is on BBC One at 9 a.m. The afternoon film on ITV1 at 2:15 p.m. is the animated fantasy comedy Shrek the Third. Can a train spotter become an astronaut? Find out in the 2-part documentary Mission to Space with Francis Bourgeois on Channel 4 at 6:50 p.m. Rob Brydon presents another round of quick-fire duels in the game show The Floor at 6:55 p.m. on ITV1. The remaining contestants are tasked with making parent and child animal sculptures in the Great Pottery Throwdown on Channel 4 at 7:50 p.m. Rosalind's skills are put to the test with an unusual domestic case in Call the Midwife on BBC One at 8 p.m. In Pilgrimage with Simon Reeve on BBC Two at 8 p.m, the adventurer embarks on the final leg of his pilgrimage in Istanbul. Several choices at 9 tonight. In tonight's episode of The Night Manager on BBC One at 9 p.m, Matthew Ellis has been exposed and Pine can no longer run. He meets Gilberto Hansen and offers a deal, then tries to dismantle the operation. The first episode of a 2-part documentary, Confessions of a Killer, is on BBC Two at 9 tonight. In 2009, dentist Colin Howell walked into a police station and confessed to the double murder of his wife and the husband of his former lover 18 years previously. The programme explores the case with access to Howell's confession tapes. In tonight's episode of the drama After the Flood on ITV1 at 9, Joe discovers that the 2 dead men, together with an accomplice, targeted a chemical company belonging to Alan Venson, and the search is on for the mysterious third person. The gangster drama Carlito's Way, starring Al Pacino, is the late-night film on Channel 4 at 1:55 p.m. Here are those programmes which are on at the same time throughout the week. On BBC One, Homes Under the Hammer is at 11:15 a.m. Monday to Friday, and Lost and Found in the Lakes is at 2 p.m. Monday to Thursday. On ITV1, Dickinson's Real Deal is at 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. On Channel 4, there are 4 episodes of the US sitcom Frasier, starting at 9:10 each morning, Monday to Friday. On ITV3, there are 2 episodes of Heartbeat, starting at around 5:45 or 5:50 p.m. Monday to Friday. Now for Monday the 26th of January. A new travel series starts tonight on BBC Two at 6:30 p.m. Clive Myrie's African Adventure. In the first episode of this 10-part travel documentary, the broadcaster begins his journey around the continent in South Africa. Continues at the same time each evening this week. As it's Monday, it must be quiz night, starting with Celebrity Mastermind at 7:30, then University Challenge at 8:30, both on BBC Two. Discover more budget-friendly recipes in tonight's episode of Jamie's Feasts for a Fiver on Channel 4 at 8 p.m. In tonight's series finale of the crime drama Linley on BBC One at 8:30 p.m, Linley and Havers probe the murders of two drug dealers. The film One Life on BBC Two at 9 p.m. is a biographical drama starring Anthony Hopkins. In 1938, British stockbroker Nicholas Winton visits Prague and becomes involved in an audacious plan to evacuate hundreds of Jewish children before the Nazis closed the borders. In the drama After the Flood on ITV1 at 9, Joe and Sam find themselves with two unexpected suspects in custody. It's the final day and just 5 recruits remain in Celebrity SAS Who Dares Wins on Channel 4 at 9 p.m. Reunited with her on-again, off-again mentor, Harper teams up with Eric to embark on a new partnership. The drama Industry is on BBC One at 10:40 p.m. Tuesday the 27th of January. In Rick Stein's Australia at 7 p.m. on BBC Two, the chef continues his travels. In tonight's episodes of Inside the Factory on BBC One at 8, we discover how 120 million boxes of breakfast cereal are made each year at the Kellogg's factory. On BBC One at 9 and 10:40 p.m. tonight, space is being made on the school timetable for a big showdown in the final 2 episodes of the current series of Waterloo Road. When 2 widows on a grief cruise depart the ship in Cape Verde to visit a shrine, one of them is found murdered. The Good Ship Murder is on Channel 5 at 9 p.m. A new 4-part documentary series starts tonight on Channel 4 at 10:05, 999, What Happened Next, follows the investigators who bring the guilty to justice. Wednesday the 28th of January. The experts at the barn welcome more treasured items in need of care in the repair shop at 8 p.m. on BBC One. More discoveries from archaeological digs are unearthed in Digging for Britain on BBC Two at 8 p.m. Neha helps Debbie find the blackmailer in the drama Can You Keep a Secret on BBC One at 9 p.m. In tonight's episode of Grantchester on ITV1 at 9, Leonard spends a night in a prison cell. Patience and Frankie investigate after a monk is found dead, kneeling in prayer in a monastery's chapel. The drama Patience is on Channel 4 at 9. Although not audio described, you might enjoy catching up with the BBC's World Affairs editor and his guests as they reflect on the week's biggest global news stories. Unspun World with John Simpson is on BBC Two at 11 p.m. Thursday the 29th of January. More aspiring entrepreneurs pitch their business ideas in a new series of Dragon's Den on BBC One at 8 p.m. Lorraine is on the last leg of her adventure up Norway's stunning coastline. Lorraine Kelly's Norwegian Odyssey is on Channel 4 at 8 p.m. Lord Sugar searches for his next business partner. A new series of The Apprentice starts tonight at 9 p.m. 2 women are searching for siblings they've never met in tonight's episode of Long Lost Family at 9 p.m. on ITV1. Frankie and Patience are held at gunpoint by an escaped prisoner in the final episode of the current series of the drama Patience on Channel 4 at 9 p.m. Sai uncovers hidden tunnels, wartime shelters and a forgotten platform beneath the concourse of Glasgow Central. Britain's favourite railway stations with Sai King is on Moor 4 at 9 p.m. And so we come to Friday the 30th of January. The sleuth investigates when the eccentric ventriloquist Uncle Mirth is arrested for murder. Father Brown is on BBC One at 2 p.m. Monty concludes his horticultural journey in the Netherlands. Monty Don's Rhineland Gardens is on BBC Two at 7 p.m. A double bill of Amanda and Alan's Greek Job starts on BBC One at 7:30 tonight. The comedian, writer and lifelong cat devotee catches up with some famous cat lovers and a host of the nation's best-loved cats. David Baddiel, Catman, is on Channel 4 at 8 p.m. A new 8-part US drama series based on real-life events starts tonight. After a teenager disappears, police track and interrogate a contractor who was last seen with him. Devil in Disguise. John Wayne Gacy is on ITV1 at 9 p.m. We end the week with some welcome sunshine. The Friday night crime drama Death in Paradise returns with a new series on BBC One at 9 p.m. Selwyn's return is shaken by the death of a consultant from the shady Business and Tourism Board. Whose body is found sprawled on a car roof? Did he fall, or was he pushed? We hope you find something to interest you from this week's selection.
Now for a look at some of this coming week's radio highlights, starting with Saturday, January 24th. A History of the Bible, the book and its faiths, investigates the origins, development and contemporary meaning of the Bible. It's read by Hugh Bonneville. Radio 4 Extra, Saturday morning at 7:20 breakfast time, or 12:20 lunchtime, 6:20 in the evening. Lights Up, Dedication, a play presenting 3 versions of Shakespeare's relationship with the Earl of Southampton. Part 1 is on Radio 4, Saturday afternoon at 3. Part 2 on Tuesday at 2:15. Back to Saturday, and Gershwin's Porgy and Bess is this week's opera on Radio 3 at 6 p.m. And Forged in Steel looks at the history of the steel industry in the UK. Radio 4, 8 o'clock, Saturday night. Sunday, January 25th, Desert Island Discs is the leader of the Conservative Party, Kemi Badenoch. Radio 4, 10 a.m. While in an archive edition from 1999, the award-winning actress Leslie Manville is the castaway. Radio 4 Extra, 11 a.m. or 5 p.m. Price of Meat is a report on the increase in meat smuggling, with risks to both public health and the UK's food and farming industry. Radio 4 Sunday afternoon, 1:30. The dramatisation of Washington Irving's classic ghost story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Radio 4 at 3 o'clock. Words and Music marks the 125th anniversary of the death of Queen Victoria, with readings of works by Charles Dickens, Rudyard Kipling, Emily Bronte and Mrs. Beeton, and music by Gilbert and Sullivan, Mendelssohn and others. Radio 3, Sunday evening, 6 o'clock. And Kate Adie presents stories from around the world, in from our own correspondent. Radio 4, Sunday night, 9:30. On to programmes then that are broadcast at the same time each weekday, Monday to Friday, on the same radio station. So same time, every day, same radio station. Maughm's Eye View brings us dramatisations of 5 of Somerset Maugham's powerful short stories. The first is narrated by Dirk Bogarde, with a cast including Sylvia Sims. Radio 4 Extra for this all week at 6:30 in the morning when you wake up, 11:30 pre-lunch, or 5:30 p.m. each weekday, Monday to Friday, Radio 4 Extra. Book of the week is Craftland. James Fox reads from his book about the lost arts and vanishing skills that once governed every aspect of British life, beginning on Monday with dry stone walling. Radio 4, 11:45 every day this week in the morning, Monday to Friday. Man of Iron, Thomas Telford and the Building of Britain, biography of the celebrated engineer. Radio 4 Extra at 1:30 in the afternoon or 7:30 p.m. all week. In The Fibre Factor, Hugh Fearnley-Whittenstall examines how humans' intake of fibre has changed over the centuries and explores why we need to eat more of it. Radio 4 all week, 1:45, Monday to Friday. Composer of the week is Franz Wolfgang Mozart, the youngest child of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Radio 3, 4 o'clock. Also all week, The Essay on Disappointment. Rachel Cook takes a wry and wide-ranging look at disappointment on Radio 3, each weeknight, 9:45 this week. And the Book of Bedtime, The Memory Police, continues on Radio 4, 10:45 p.m, Monday to Friday. On to those individual programmes then to listen to through the week, starting back on Monday, January 26th. The topic for discussion in Start the Week: biology, technology and the future. Adam Rutherford and guests debate how advances in AI, cognitive science and genetics are changing our understanding of the material world. Radio 4, 9 a.m. For lighter listening, on Monday morning, there's an episode of Dad's Army from 1975, Radio 4 Extra, 7:30 in the morning, 12:30 lunchtime, 6:30 p.m. In Great Lives, the subject is Anna Freud, widely considered to be the founder of psychoanalytic child psychology. Radio 4, 3 p.m. And for fans of the comedy panel show, an episode of The Unbelievable Truth, hosted by David Mitchell, on Radio 4 at 6:30. If you're missing just a minute, there's one on Radio 4 Extra at 8 p.m. on Monday. Tuesday, January 27th, and the subject of this week's Lady Killers with Lucy Worsley is Jessie McLaughlin, a woman accused of murdering one of her friends in Glasgow. Radio 4, 3 p.m. Alternatively, People Fixing the World looks at a scheme helping dads in prison become better parents. BBC World Service at just after 3 o'clock. What's Up Docs? Chris and Zan Van Tuchelen explore our response to food and why willpower alone is rarely enough when it comes to eating well in the long term. Radio 4, Tuesday afternoon, 4:30. Well, as it's Tuesday, In Touch brings us news, views and information for people who are blind or partially sighted, presented as usual by the brilliant Peter White. Radio 4, 8:40 p.m. Wednesday, January 28th. Lines of Duty is the story of the whistleblower who risked his life and liberty to save Britain's railways. Radio 4 Extra for this story, 10 a.m. or 4 p.m. This Week in History looks back at the liberation of Auschwitz, January 27th, 1945, the publication of the Oxford English Dictionary on February 1st, 1884, and the events of Bloody Sunday, January 30th, 1972. Radio 4, 11:40 in the morning on Wednesday. There's vintage comedy from 1959 with Hancock's Half Hour on Radio 4 Extra at 12:30 lunchtime, or 6:30 alternatively in the evening. Choral Evensong comes from the Chapel of St John's College in Cambridge on Radio 3 at 3. And finally for Wednesday, a new series of The Artificial Human asks the question, is the AI bubble about to burst? And examines the health of the AI business landscape. Radio 4, 3:30 p.m. Thursday, January 29th. In This Cultural Life, the actor Sir Jonathan Pryce talks about his life and career on Radio 4 at 11 in the morning. The drama is a murder mystery, Silent Tide. On the shore of a remote Scottish island, the body of young backpacker and gifted surfer Santiago is found washed up by the tide. Radio 4 for the drama, 2:15 Thursday afternoon. Ghosts of the Farm is the title of this week's edition of Ramblings, in which Claire Balding joins writer Nicola Chester for a circular walk starting from her home in the village of Inkpen in Berkshire. Radio 4 for this, 3 o'clock. BBC Inside Science presents the latest scientific research to make the news headlines on Radio 4 at 4:30, while in Radical, Amol Rajan and his guests offer their analysis of the biggest news stories of the week on Radio 4 at 11 p.m. And Amol Rajan announced this week he's leaving the Today programme on Radio 4, but he will be continuing to do this podcast for the BBC, we understand. So Radical, Radio 4, 11 p.m. On to Friday, January 30th, offering nostalgia with an episode of Steptoe and Son. 1971 this was made. It's on Radio 4 Extra to wake you up at 7:30 in the morning, 12:30 lunchtime, 6:30 p.m. The series Materials of State continues with the history of Black Rod, which is unusual for being both a person and an object, a parliamentary officer and the ebony staff that they carry. Radio 4, 2:45 Friday afternoon. Gardener's Question Time answers listeners' queries on aspects of horticulture on Radio 4 at 3. Well, Friday night is Music Night, another chance to hear a concert which was broadcast live from the Chichester Festival Theatre last January. Highlights from classic film scores from British cinema. Radio 3, Friday night, 7:30. while Americast explores the culture and social stories defining the political debate in the United States and influencing the rest of the world as well. Radio 4 for Americast, Friday night, 11 o'clock. That's it. Thank you to Wendy for the highlights this week. May I wish you a peaceful, safe and enjoyable one of radio listening.
TNF Soundings.